Hey guys, we want to thank Cap City Tees for sponsoring today's episode. That's right, Cap City Tees, the #1 printing company in Sacramento. Well, at least in our hearts. Cap City Tees is an amazing company putting out amazing quality at, most importantly, amazing prices. They are in line with any major retailer out there. Now, if you're in need of getting a shirt screen printed or embroidered, whether that's your local soccer team or basketball team or volleyball team or all the way up to corporate clothing, Cap City Tees is the place to go. So if you're in need or if you're in want, reach out to Cap City Tees at capcitytees.com or capcitytees@gmail.com. That's capcitytees@gmail.com. Welcome to the Hard Money Show, where we talk about real estate, home loans, and media. It is a good day when we can get Sophie on the line. Wait, Sophia? Sophie.
You could call me Sophie, but for these purposes, you could just say Sophia.
Sophia, all right. I never know, people are kind of odd about their names. Like, my name is Michael, but I go by Mac. I have since I was like 11. And then sometimes people will send stuff over to me, or like you, I talk to somebody else and they'll say a shorter name that you have. And I'm always like, I don't know what's the most respectful way to have this conversation with them. But either way, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day. Happy the sun's shining. How's your day going?
Well, it's been a long one already. I had a loan that I'm helping with. We're trying to get closed today. I'm trying not to use like super hard vernacular that only people who are in our industry would know. But we're trying to get the clear to close today. And I was telling my wife, I don't know if we choose clients that just travel a lot or they decide that they're going to go on vacation and leave the country the same time that they're going to close on a deal. I don't know what happens, but it seems to be happening a lot with us. So that's what we were trying to do in a really weird condition. Not condition, really, even. It was a background qualified mortgage Fannie and Freddie issue that came out. And it was really weird. It just popped up out of nowhere. And so that consumed a good portion of my day. And then I kind of just got ready for this. And I was like, all right, let's jump on and let's talk. What about you? How's your day been going?
It's been good. I just got back from a listing appointment. I know we haven't officially met, so I'll tell you a little bit of background. I work alongside my dad, who's also a realtor. So we went together, we operate together as a team, and that went well. So it's been a good day. Just got home, just like you, ready to get this started. I've never been asked to do a podcast, so I'm super excited.
So I didn't know your dad was a realtor. That would have been cool. We should have had both of you on and we could have talked about your guys' experiences. You guys work together.
Yes, we work together. So I was thinking that as well in hindsight, like we should do a collaboration.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah, maybe in the future. I've had other guests on multiple times to talk about whatever it is, but I've never had a father-daughter relationship and in our industry. So that would be really interesting. The family component in this is really critical. When we talk about, we've had conversations about like people coming into the industry, right? Like brand new realtors. And we kind of say like, unless you've had somebody that is in the industry already that you can work with and can really guide you, that's probably one of the strongest ways you can enter the real estate industry, right? And as you've probably learned by now, there's just a lot of really odd in and outs of the industry, and it really helps to just have somebody that you can like call or text. Like, your dad will likely pick up your calls, I hope, very quickly. So that would be really cool. But today is not about him, right? It's always about him. Today is about you, right? That's why we're here. And it's interesting. We had another guest that was on the podcast, and she was amazing, and she was posting something about an event. I don't remember the exact event. Maybe you could tell us about it if it springs into your memory, but I saw you on the flyer, and I saw under your name, it said Community Advocate Realtor. And I thought, that's not a real title. And then I thought, maybe it is. I don't know. And then I thought, what does that mean? Like, that's a really interesting title. Even if it's not like something from the DRE or, the car or whatever it is. I was just like, wow, like if that's what her branding is, I'm like, I really want to know what that is, especially because we've had quite a few people on who they don't have that title necessarily, but that is a lot of what they do. They really focus their real estate around that sort of component of building community, right? And so I think it's really interesting for you to have that. Do you want to tell us what that means and where did it come from? Really just kind of all about it. I'm so interested in it.
Yes, definitely. So the story kind of started, I would say, about 5 years ago when I was just starting college at Sac State here in Sacramento. And I actually went in as a biology major. And it's probably like a lot of other people, I thought I was going to go to medical school and do the whole thing. And I quickly realized that that route wasn't necessarily for me. So I kind of just started to follow what I was attracted to, what I was good at doing in school. And it was writing. So I started taking ethnic studies classes, and that's what really like sparked my interest in kind of like social justice and basically just like uplifting marginalized communities. And from there, I changed my major to women's and gender studies. And I really centered my focus around uplifting marginalized groups, historically oppressed groups. And I graduated with Bachelor's of Science in Women's and Gender Studies. And what sparked that is I actually got a job at a nonprofit, and I was just really moved by the kind of connection I felt to that type of work. And it just changed the whole trajectory of everything. So from there, with that degree, I'm thinking in my head, what can I do with this? I could work, for a company to, promote racial equity and things like that. But then I started thinking more and more about how detrimental the wealth gap is and how it's targeted towards people who are historically oppressed. And that's when I started realizing I could make a real impact in real estate with this focus. And that's exactly what I plan to do. So it kind of just happened that way. I didn't think that I was going to get into real estate. I always saw myself as like not the personality for real estate. I kind of wrote it off for myself because I'm just I see my dad as super talkative and all of this, and I just never thought I could. But through the years, I just decided to go for it. And there's been no looking back since I got licensed last June. And since then, I've just been just learning a lot, immersing myself completely. And that's it.
So did you, when you were like a child, did you want to be a doctor? Is that why you kind of had that in your head? Or is that, we find, and not to like pigeonhole you because I don't know what your ethnicity is or anything like that, but you don't look like you're Caucasian. So I kind of wonder, we have a kind of in these communities, we talk a little bit about, that sort of idea of being like a doctor and a lawyer and going the traditional route and things like that. Was that a family thing for you guys? Or was that something where like you were kind of passionate about it and then you decided kind of like later in life it wasn't? And I would totally understand that. I wanted to be a chef all the way until I was 18. And then I was like, nope, I don't want to do that. I want to be a professional trainer. I'm going to get my PhD. And then I did 2.5 years of kinesiology, physiology. And then I was like, I hate working with lazy people. There's no way that I want to work with lazy people. And then I stopped doing that. So I always think it's a really interesting, this kind of way that we pivot as we get older.
Hmm. Well, to answer your question, it wasn't necessarily like a childhood dream that I had.
Mm.
I think that, my surroundings definitely played a big part in why I wanted to do something in the medical field, whether it was that or, at one point I wanted to be a lawyer. It was kind of just, I mean, I'm thinking about stability, financial stability, and then I'm keeping in mind my parents who are supporting me through college and everything. So I'm thinking about, them wanting their investment to
Right.
return. So there's all these things in my head. But as I got, I kind of grew into myself. I realized what I really truly think is important and what is fulfilling to me. And I'm lucky enough that, everyone around me supported that. So I decided to follow, that instinct.
That's awesome. And the title that is that a self-proclaimed title then?
Yes, so that is, a self-proclaimed title, but I've done things to back it. So in my work at a nonprofit, I wasn't licensed yet, but I mentored, I mentored basically children who are struggling in school. So I was at not Del Del Campo High School,
Mm.
and that kind of that sparked my interest in kind of like working with the community, being a community advocate, and immersing myself. And ever since I got licensed, I've been making a conscious effort to kind of gather the community and plan events around the community, and really like make a difference. So I've only done 3 events, but so far, one of them was in support of Loaves and Fishes, a nonprofit out of Sacramento. They help the homeless community. And then another one was for Invictus Youth Foundation. They also do a lot of community work with children. And then recently, the flyer that you saw with Maria, who was also on your show, we did a Sip into Spring event, and that was in support of Joey's Food Locker out of the Natomas School District. So I'm really happy I met Maria and we're on the same team. We really align in that way, where we really care about the community and want to make a tangible difference. And that's kind of like one of the main reasons I wanted to get into real estate, because I feel like it's such a tangible difference you could make in people's lives, whether it's actually, helping people become homeowners or just speaking life into them and showing them that they can. And I know that's not necessarily like very common in historically oppressed communities, or it's just the information is not as readily available if those around you are not aware. So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
You did. You did. No, that's awesome. Yeah, Maria. I had another realtor on. Her tag is Community Rose. She works kind of a lot in kind of the Midtown area. I mean, she's all over Sacramento, but that's her big thing too, community advocacy. And so maybe you guys can all partner up and do something. That would be pretty cool. But I think it's such an interesting approach to real estate, right? Because I think the narrative overall for realtors is that there's two kind of, I think you have like kind of the old lady who was a housewife who then became like a realtor to have something to do, right? That kind of very old picturesque like view of what a realtor is. And now, because of the growth of social media, and because there's some really prominent people that have created some top-notch real estate content through TikTok and YouTube, Instagram, now there's kind of a new picture, which is kind of wealth and maybe kind of like douchebag a little bit, I would say, honestly. And that's really just because that's what they see, right? But even then, right? I mean, if you look historically, you look at 2008 and what went on there, and you take away like the actual event and you look at the psychology behind it, you look at what was happening, just massive amounts of greed, which is what that essentially left to. People just making massive amounts of money in the industry by, doing others wrong. And
Mhm.
so that's what kind of what I found a lot of people think of realtors, right? They don't trust them. I just did a podcast. I Googled like realtor or real estate agent, and I let it self-populate. And I looked at what are the top things that are on there, and they're not good. Like people do not have a good view of realtors. And so I think it's great to have realtors who are approaching real estate from a standpoint that they can help the community, that they can help marginalized communities, and that they can help bridge the gap of wealth, right? Because it's such a difficult thing to do. Now, myself, we've talked about this. I'm licensed as a realtor, I'm licensed as a loan officer. And so I've kind of seen the bridge between those. And because I do the financing side and I see where people's finances look like, that's the direction that I'm trying to go as well, right? And with the understanding that it's only getting more and more difficult to become a homeowner in California, right? So I think that that's a great mission to have. I think that you're going the right way. My only kind of real question on that is, what does that look like for you financially, right? Because people who are challenged at buying properties, right, they're going to tend to buy properties that are valued less, which ultimately means that you make less, right? So for you, if it's security, if it's about setting yourself up to have some, a life for yourself, you're really a yield kind of person, right? You have to get kind of a lot of these in to kind of make up for the people, right? If you're doing $300,000 deals and other people are doing $600,000 to $700,000 deals, you have to do 2 deals for every 1 deal that someone else does. And statistically, most realtors only do 6 deals a year, if not less already, right? So I'm curious, just from your standpoint. I mean, I do want to talk more about the community advocacy, but I'm just curious, as a newer realtor, what does that kind of planning look like for you?
Um, Honestly, as far as planning, obviously I want to hit these certain numbers because, like you said, there's a lot of different factors that affect your pay. It really helps that I have a partner in business, my dad, but honestly, like I don't discriminate against any deals, no matter the number amount. Like I'm working with multiple people who are looking for mobile homes, and these people, they need the housing more than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I would never turn somebody away. So if that means that my volume is lower, then that's just what it's going to be like. Now, who's to say what happens when the market picks up? We might have to prioritize differently. But I do have the support behind me. I have a team. We range all across California. So I welcome it. And if it gets to the point where I need to delegate and prioritize things differently, then I'll do it. But at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, I'm going to consult with anyone, no matter who it is, no matter what the price is. And that's just that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand, well, sales in general, right? It takes almost as much effort for you to do a deal that is $300,000 as it is a deal that is $1 million, right? And so
Mhm.
when you look at business from that standpoint, you look at it and you say, okay, well, how is my time best used? When
Mhm.
you look at your job or your career, or you look at real estate from that standpoint, you start to make different decisions about the way that you're moving forward, right?
Right.
If you start, this is the way I feel like you are, if you start from a position of where money is not the most important thing and helping is the most important thing, I think then that's when you can make more ethical choices and choices that really help the most people, right?
Mhm.
I remember having a friend who's a friend of a friend whose wife was a realtor, and there was a deal out in the Bay. And she essentially, it was a good deal. It was like 800K or something. She's like, I don't drive out to the Bay for less than $1 million. I mean, that's kind of it's kind of an interesting approach if you think about real estate, right? And it's, to me, it sounds like that's not the way that you're approaching real estate. That's not the way that your community and your team is set up. And I'm right there with you, right? I mean, I just had a client, we were working a mobile home deal for them. We have commercial real estate that's multi-million-dollar deals. And so it kind of goes both ways, right? But for you as a newer person, right, and you're already branding yourself as a community advocate, you're creating that avenue for you. And for me, the hope was always, okay, if I'm able to help these people, if I'm able to bridge the gap at this lower level and I'm able to get them on the property ladder, which is ultimately the most important thing, then perhaps this is going to be the stepping stone for them to make multiple purchases, right?
Mhm.
How's that kind of narrative come into your head? How are you thinking about building this business over the long term?
That definitely comes into my head. Like every interaction that I have with somebody, I just make sure that I give them my, 100%. And it comes back around often. And watching my dad's career, a lot of his business is referral based. So I know how important that is to really just do right by everybody. So yes, of course, it does come into play. And like you said about, how somebody said they wouldn't drive out to the bay if it wasn't a million plus. Um, that's a real concern because, we've had situations like that before where we have to decide if we want to make a commute or whatnot. But it just all comes down to if I have the resources to do it and it feels right within me, then I'm going to do it. But at the end of the day, if I don't, then that's a decision I have to make for myself. But it's a fine line between that. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people who are not in the industry, they just think, well, any deal that comes your way, you're just going to take it and you're going to do it. But as you get more seniored in the organization, you start to realize that, like you said, maybe it doesn't make sense to go there. Maybe it makes sense to pass that off to somebody like myself, right? I no longer do real estate unless it's like a family member or a very close friend who's like, they're very set on like, we want you to do real estate, right? I mostly do real estate for myself. I do the loan side. So for me now, if I get real estate deals, I pass them off to my realtor partners, right? That to me makes the most sense. And I think as you move up, like your dad, right? Your dad's been in the industry a long time. Maybe your dad closes 20 deals and he's like, you know what? I'm going to give a couple to you so you can get practice and you can start building your thing, right? And so it's really interesting the way that this develops. And we haven't talked about this on the podcast because there hasn't been really that sort of bridge and connection, right? Most of the people we get on the podcast that are new, they don't have anybody to lean on. They have like their broker, but you may not have experienced that, but most brokers just don't have time for their realtors. That's just the reality. And then you might have a team lead and, they have to do their business as well. And so it's very interesting. So you are in Sacramento, correct?
Correct. Yes. Born and raised.
Born and raised. Where did you go to high school?
I went to Pleasant Grove High in Elk Grove.
I'm going to pretend I know where that's at. I should know where that's at. I know where the elementary schools are, but I don't really know the high schools.
Okay. It's off Bond.
Okay.
I actually live in Rancho Cordova. And it's the area I live in Rancho. It's part of Elk Grove School District because it's more southern. And I would go to Pleasant Grove.
So are you practicing mostly in Rancho Cordova then?
We are like heavily immersed in our neighborhood. Anatolia, if any of you are aware, 95742, it's developing fast and we're, getting more and more involved with our community, planning on putting on events here and showing everybody how it's pretty much the next up in SAC.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm going to give you a hard-hitting question.
Okay.
So you are a community advocate, right? You want to work with lower income people. You want to bridge that gap. What value is there for you to work in Anatolia when the median home cost for new construction there is $600,000, right?
Mhm.
They're building 10,000 homes from Anatolia to Folsom. Nobody who's low income is going to be able to afford those homes. So, not to say, like, I'm not saying, hey, don't do that. That's your community, right? You should be doing that. But I do think it's interesting, right? Because there's not any homes out there that are what I would deem like affordable, right? Homes that are like between like 400 to 300. That's affordable in Sacramento. There's none out there. So what does that really look like for you, right? Is it like, okay, well, I'm going to spend a portion of my time here and then a portion of my time in a different community that makes more sense? Because obviously there's much more underserved communities out here in South Sac, Citrus Heights, orange parts of Orangevale, right? I mean, so what does that look like?
So, we do service a broad demographic. So there's a lot of, people in our sphere who, my dad might know, and they're more established. So we have to be knowledgeable on
Mm,
that price point. And then my sphere, I'm 22, right? So my sphere, they're, honestly not even ready to buy their first home, but
mm-hmm.
it's my job to educate them on that. So I just try to diversify, my knowledge about the area, and just have, knowledge about like what area would be good for, a person that's can afford this and that. And yeah, it is hard to balance and feel ethical, because at the end of the day, you're looking out for yourself, right? Well, you need to make a living. It's a recession, and then it's also like, okay, how can I involve the demographic who needs it the most? So I think it's a balance almost, and well, it's never going to be perfectly balanced. It reminds me of how somebody said, if you're looking for balance, you're never going to be satisfied. It's more of an orchestra. So that's kind of how I look at it. Just trying to, be somebody who people can trust, with a purchase as big as a home.
Yeah, it's such a difficult thing, right? To create a plan, a business plan for yourself that, I mean, I don't know if you can like only try to sell houses. I guess you could, right? If you lived in South Sac and you only wanted to sell houses in South Sac, you could, right? But you're right. You're doing yourself a disservice by not really knowing Sacramento's community as a whole, knowing where people want to buy. And even like if you wanted to buy, and thus say an investment property that was underserved and you wanted to fix it up and, help that community, you would need to know outside of, let's just say South Sac as an example, you'd need to know outside of that one area, right? And so, man, I just find it very difficult to approach real estate from that way, because I'm very similar that way, but I don't market as like a community advocate. I don't market necessarily for like any specific it's hard to like really say this, but like any class, any, gender, anything like that. And I see that, right? I see people, they're like, they have established and they've said like the African American community, Hispanic community, LGBT, these are underserved communities. So these are the people that I'm going to market to, right? And I don't do that. I market to everybody. I mostly do that because I'm really like a stickler for rules. And although I agree that those are underserved communities and you have to be very careful about how you word stuff, when you're looking at the Civil Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, all of these are very, very strict on protected classes. And they say very carefully that you're not allowed to market distinctly to certain levels of people, certain levels of community, certain like anything like that, right? So is it a good thing that you're like, let's say that you're a African American realtor and you're marketing only to African Americans because you believe that they need help? Yes, because if you believe they need help, that's great. But could it be a violation of laws, yeah, it also could, right? So I kind of like, I find it really hard for me to navigate that and feel comfortable without just being like, I'm here to help everybody. And, I definitely want to help. I do it more in my actions. I'm not sure how you are with this, but I'm more like, I'm going to help people who are 3 to 5 years out from buying a home. I'm going to teach you how to repair your credit. I'm going to help you set up a roadmap so we'll do, 6-month check-ins and stuff like that. So I'm totally there with you. We want to be everywhere. But there is this kind of, because I was in nonprofit for like 10 years. So I have this innate feeling too. I'm like, I feel like I really need to do something to help the community. And because I spend so much of my life in the real estate industry, I feel like that's what I need to do. Right. So what do you have coming up? I know that you just did that thing with Maria. Did it happen or it is happening?
Yeah, it happened the week before last.
Mm-hmm.
It was a successful event. We did a food drive, so it was fun. And Maria's a great partner,
Mm-hmm.
and we connect on, a lot of our beliefs
Mm-hmm.
and our backgrounds. So
Yeah, the thing I like about her setup, right? It's less about I'm trying to help a specific community and more about whatever business I get in the door, I want to give a portion of that back to the community. I want to create events that help the community, right? And I feel like that's a very strong way to approach real estate and to build your business around that while still being of service to your community. Is that kind of the way that you envision, moving forward in the industry?
definitely, my intent in real estate is not to be a realtor forever. It's to get myself to a place where I have the financial freedom to do something even more impactful. Also with social media, I'm trying to just put knowledge out there, and a lot of my followers and the people who, are close to me, they are the demographic that I want to uplift, so
Mm-hmm.
there's like different ways that I want to do it, but end game, I want to do something that is like tangible and, leaves a strong impact on my community and is bigger than me. That's my goal.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a great way to really think about it and approach it. Do you have something in your mind about, you're going to do real estate, but is it that you kind of want to build real estate into something else? Or you're like, well, eventually I'd kind of like real estate to be this thing that I do on the side while I'm pursuing this other larger thing.
Well, honestly, I don't really plan too far ahead because at the end of the day, I'm 22 years old and I'm the type of person that really just goes with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like I follow energy often, and sometimes I don't intend to, but that's just the way that I operate. So if life brings me to the point where I want to continue and make an impact through real estate, then I'll do that. If it's something that I just grow beyond, I guess you could say,
Mm-hmm.
then I would know that when the
Yeah.
time comes.
Yeah, you never really know, right? You might end up loving it. And real estate has so many avenues that you can take it and then you can use the experience that you have. So that makes sense. So you've been in real estate almost a year,
Exactly. A year in June.
a year in June. What's been the biggest thing you've learned in the last year?
It's so hard to even say. I've kind of learned the importance of just like being in tune with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day that controls your every action. And I feel like for a long time I was in pilot mode, like I was in school since I was 5 years old,
Mm-hmm.
because between high school and college I didn't take any time off. I was just like, this is my life, like I'm just a student and I'll have like part-time jobs on the side. But real estate is like a whole different animal, and it really shows me, because school came naturally to me. I know that, like other people, like my brothers, for example, it wasn't a natural thing to them, but it always came natural to me. But now with real estate, it's like I have to be so intentional about honing my skills in real estate because it doesn't come natural to me. Like I'm not the most talkative person with
Mm.
people that I'm close to, yes. But when it comes to, strangers, I'm talking to strangers all the time now. I wasn't necessarily used to that. I wasn't the biggest networker in college. And that's honestly just taught me just growth. Like just get out of your comfort zone, and it's forced me to be okay with it and to welcome it. And now I'm always finding myself in positions that I'm not used to, but it's done a lot for me in terms of growth and just maturing.
So would you say that like, I don't know if it's an introvert extrovert sort of thing, but it sounds like it may be a little bit. Would you say that that's been the hardest part of being in real estate for you? Is that kind of getting out there and being active in the community and talking to strangers, or were there other things about being in real estate that have been more difficult for you?
I feel like that's probably one of the most difficult because when you're new, a new realtor, you don't necessarily have all the experience to, back up what you're saying, and you'll know things by the book because I'm kind of like that. Like I was good in school and I knew by the book, but when I don't necessarily have the experience, the hands-on experience, it makes you nervous. And I think that's normal. A lot of people feel that way. So it's a matter of me just knowing in order to be successful, I need to really know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's difficult. And like, kind of, I do consider myself an introvert. But I wouldn't even label myself like that anymore. I don't even put labels on myself anymore because they don't serve me.
Mm.
If I labeled myself as that, then I wouldn't have, changed this much thus far. So yeah, I don't label myself that anymore. I just kind of take each thing as it comes.
I like that. So your partnership with your dad, right? Is it his brokerage, or are you guys under another brokerage?
We're under EXP, under Team Fast. My dad, he did own his own brokerage, and my dad has lived 1,000 lives. He was actually a loan officer as well, and he owned like a mortgage company, and then he became a realtor. So I'm sure he could tell more about that story. But honestly, it just, like you said, the broker oftentimes doesn't have time for his agents. And that was kind of the situation, it's a lot. And we're happy where we are now. And that's the most important thing.
EXP. Man, I've been trying to get like somebody really honed in EXP. I've had one person there, but Maria's from there, right? So that's the one person that I've had. But like, I want somebody who's super heavy in recruitment. Like that's really what I want, because EXP, people try to say like, oh no, it's a family, and like that's not what it is. But it 100% a lot of recruitment going in there. There's the only way that it can be one of the fastest growing real estate companies in the country, right? So it's so like, obviously you guys are closing deals because these brokerages would be closing down if they weren't. But on the other side, I really want to talk to somebody who's like super heavy on the recruitment side and kind of get that fill, because your dad would really understand this. The broker, it's kind of that broker side, or it's the business side, right? It's like you can't expand, you can't grow. The more people you have, kind of, you can start to lower the cost a little bit by here, a little bit by there for all of your realtors that come on, right? So would be super interesting. So you have like a lot of life ahead of you still, right? I mean, you've gotten into real estate really young. Most people are not in real estate this young. And so have you found that to be difficult for you? When I got my license, I had a mentee and a friend. We all got our license together. And my mentee was 18 when he got his real estate license. It's a little difficult, right? People don't really trust you because they feel like you don't have life experience. Maybe you're not as well spoken, or don't know how to navigate the business world as well. Have you found that to be a little bit difficult for you? I mean, you wouldn't really know, right? Maybe in 10 years you can look back and have a better conversation about this, but Have you found that maybe like any sort of prejudice about just being younger?
Yeah, definitely. It's difficult, and but I also feel like it's mostly in my head because I've never had somebody ask me how old I was or
Mm,
make an assumption verbally that I was young. So
mm,
I think it's a mental thing, just self-doubt, imposter syndrome, all of that.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, most people, like, I'm terrible at guessing how old people are, right? So if you got your, excuse me, if you got your real estate license, I would just be like, well, they're at least 18, right? That person looks like they could be older. I don't really know. But ultimately, part of the conversations and what I like to put out on this podcast is that if you are newer and you are younger, there's a lot of advantages that you have in this industry, right? Right now, I'm working on creating a master class for media development. That's what kind of my big background is outside of these two. And so right now, I have a system in place where we're getting 240 social media posts over 5 platforms out a week. And that could be quadrupled. So somewhere right around 1,000 posts a week, over 5 platforms. And so we're developing sort of systems. And you try to have this conversation with somebody who's been in real estate for 20 or 30 years, they're going to be like, no, thank you. Like, I don't care. I don't want to talk about social media. I don't want to talk about branding. I don't want to talk about any of that, right? But you talk to somebody that's your age in their 30s and they're all about it, right? And this is the time, right? I mean, we're in a revolution right now with Chat GPT, with AI, art that's coming out. I mean, all of this stuff is revolutionizing what we're doing, Web 3.0. And people who jump on it, I think the key, if you want to do real estate and then you want to be, one of the best at it, is you have to stay in. That's the number one thing. Stay in the industry. Just don't leave. Keep paying your dues. Try to get deals and learn everything else that's kind of around it, right? And so having a conversation with you would be much easier to be like, hey, like, how is your branding looking? Like, how's your social media development looking? Because you understand that that's important. And that I think is going to translate over to people who are looking for a realtor more and more and more, right? Right now, we're still a little far away from, the older generation really understanding why it's critical. And I had this problem for years. I was really early on social media and trying to get all the nonprofits and all the business I work to leverage it. And so now they finally are. But I think that's where you have an advantage, right? You're native to all of these platforms and you're going to continue to grow with them. And that's where you're going to win. And if you stick with it and you're going to do it, you're going to do it. So do you have a business social media up then?
So yes, I absolutely do. My philosophy is kind of like, why make a business page? When somebody hires you as their agent, they're hiring you as a person. And I present myself as exactly who I am. So my personal and business page is just one. I'm me, and I don't restrict myself on content that I make. I just try to appeal to, you know, everyone, not everyone, but anyone.
Right.
So
Yeah,
yes.
I mean you're yourself. You're being authentic, right? You're not creating some sort of false picture for people.
Yeah, and that's like something that I would see a lot, like a lot of other agents that have a business account, and you can't connect with that. You can't connect with flyers just sold and that's it, just like words on pictures. That people want to see who you are, they want to get a sense of who you are, and they want to feel like they could relate to you. So that's super important to me. I think a lot of people are catching on who are in this business, and even my dad, I have my dad making reels, and it's just like that just goes to show he's near enough to my generation where he sees how valuable social media is. And I guess the generation right before, they might not really be on social, so they don't really understand. But if you're trying to capture, those who are buying, now a lot of them are on social media. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. So we kind of have a philosophy that phone calls is probably the best example, right? Most people who are under the age of 30 do not like making phone calls or receiving phone calls. I mean, even people in their early 30s, they don't like making phone calls. They don't like receiving phone calls, right? This is a good example of the way that communication shifts over time. So when we look at that as an example, and then we look at how did people used to build their business, and how can people build it now? We kind of have like a lost art there. Phone calls, cold calling, all of these things are still really vital. And the one thing that we're really noticing, and this is in large part to COVID and 3 years of people just not spending time around people, is networking, in-person networking. There's no better ROI in real estate than creating face-to-face relationships. It does not matter if, and the other thing with social media development, right? Let's say you do get really popular on social media. This happens to every single realtor who gets very popular on real estate. They stop doing real estate.
Yep, I knew you were going
Yeah,
to say
because
that.
why would you do real estate when you can become a millionaire doing social media? So that's the thing that I try to tell people, like, there's no point of going super heavy on social media, because at that point you're an influencer, right? It needs to be a tool. Your main way to develop business needs to be in person. You need to try to leverage these other things in your tool belt to get in person, right? But it's harder to get in person now. People are a lot more stingy with their time than they used to be. And we don't want to spend as much time around each other because of COVID, right? So you have to have social media. You have to develop a presence there. And this is where I think that you made a really good point, right? A lot of what we're putting out as a business, right? It's not as a personal page. It's at a business level. And so it's less personable. It's a very kind of like, this is facts about real estate. This is facts about, Sacramento and things like that. But you as an individual, you can really develop, an image for yourself and really say, like, this is who I am as a realtor. This is what I believe in. This is what my character is. And this is why you should work with me through these sort of things. What is your social media tag, by the way?
It is Sophia Barcenas, my first and last name. Um, Kept it short and simple.
And what platforms are you on?
I'm on Instagram and TikTok mainly, also on Facebook. My TikTok is Sophia Barcenas. Somebody stole my name.
Oh,
But
no.
those are the main three that I use heavily. Um, I'm trying to get on YouTube Shorts pretty soon. I really like the short form content. So,
Yeah, that's the way to go. I was just having this conversation with another realtor, right? About the pivot point in social media, right? You have to shift where attention is. And this is why it's really important to not chase money in social media, because then you're kind of pigeonholed, right? If you like, I've established all my relationships on TikTok, I can't really transition over to YouTube now. That could be really tough, or vice versa the other way. But like for someone like us, we can do wherever we want, right? As long as you have the time and commitment to be consistent in social media development and branding development, things like that, you're totally going to be in a good place. What sort of stuff are you putting out?
oh,
Are
I'm
you
sorry.
doing dances? You're out there doing the dances, or what are you doing out there?
Yeah, I like to do a lot of day in the lives just to show kind of, whether that's a work day or a weekend. I love putting out food content. It really seems like I get the biggest response from food content. And I love food. So, like, if I got a client that loves food, that would be like a match made in heaven. So, I put out what I want to track basically and what I like to watch. I watch a ton of food videos and a ton of, day in the life. So, that's what I do as of right now.
Yeah, you got to get a couple chefs in your stables on. Get a couple of the chefs and some cooks, and be like, "That's who I work with. I'll get you a house, and I'm gonna come eat at your restaurant, have some good food.
Yeah, definitely. Like getting into local businesses and doing collaborations, that's definitely, in my plans.
I like that. What about your dad? Is your dad doing TikTok?
He's doing reels. He
Reels.
started with the reels. Eventually, he'll probably get on TikTok too, but right now we're doing a lot of collaboration reels, whether that's a mukbang or whatnot, and then also, just kind of just like past past deals or situations that others can learn from. What we're seeing in business, in the market, a lot of people ask us, the same questions. So, if there's something on our mind or that we've been hearing often, then we put it out there to all our friends and family. We've had the same pages forever, and they started personal, and now they're personal and business. So that's how we're doing them as of right now.
I like it. I like it. At EXP, how do you does your dad still process or does just process? Does your dad still do loans?
No, not anymore. He hasn't done loans for over a decade.
Oh, so does EXP have like how does that work? Because I don't think EXP has their own mortgage division, does it?
I don't believe
I should
so.
know that, but I don't.
I don't believe so. If they do, I've never heard of it. So,
So who does your guys' loans?
we use Patty Goodspeed. She's a longtime family friend of ours. For me, my whole life, but for my dad, probably more than 2 decades. She's local to the area too, Bay Area, also Sacramento. Every agent kind of uses those who they have a relationship with, and it's been working great for us. So,
I have to say, Patty Goodspeed, that is a sweet name. You should let
yeah.
her know. That is a great. It sounds like a superhero name or something. That's really good. Yeah, it's so interesting because being on the loan side, right? There's this conversation with how do you build a real estate relationship, right? Because really, like loan officers, we have to have relationship with realtors because 99% of people go to realtors first. They don't go to loan officers because a multitude of reasons, right? So they go to realtors first, but it's always really like your guys' situation makes really sense, right? Your dad's been in for decades. He has a preferred lender that he works with. But I talk to a lot of newer realtors or newer brokerages, and I'm like, I don't really understand the commitment. That's what I don't really understand, right? Is like people are super, super committed to like these people. And I'm like, look, I get it, but this is an industry of like plethora. There's a lot of people, a lot of brokerages, things like that. Even when people come work with me, I say, hey, go shop two or three other loan officers. Like I promise you, it's going to be very competitive, but I likely will do better. But it's such an interesting thing to see that. And I only ask because, you've probably have learned a lot from your dad and he's given you a lot of insight that a lot of people just do not have in this industry. And then you have your newer perspective, right? And so I think you're kind of bridging those and you're making your own kind of pathway for yourself. So what does the next year look like for you in real estate?
The next year, it just looks like me fully committing. I feel like the first year was a big adjustment period.
Mm.
I was doing my whole life changed, drastically. And like I said, I was very used to being a student, and um, I've done some adjusting, and now I kind of have an idea of what I haven't been doing that I need to do. It's lucky that I have my accountability partner so close to me, my dad, but it really just looks like committing 100% and
Hmm.
um, just diving deeper into my purpose and like, at my age, getting closer with myself, getting a better relationship with myself, um, building mental fortitude and just living life.
Do you have any sort of like unique, like, do you want to do so many houses or like a certain amount money wise? Do you have any goals like that? Or it's just really just learn as much as you can about the industry?
Yeah, of course. I do have a goal, a business plan, and everything. Um, I will keep that to myself.
Secrets. All right.
It's but I do have a goal, yes, and I'm trying every day to, I've done the math, and I'm trying to do everything daily that would add up to that number. But I'm not a type of person that's too hooked on the numbers. I don't fall in line with a lot of the stereotypes about a salesperson, so I'm pretty unique in that sense.
Yeah, I find people that are kind of like that, as long as you don't get tired of the industry, right? Do pretty well because you don't come off super salesy. And that's kind of the hardest part about this. Even if you have the best intentions of the world and you're super educated and you know the industry up and down, most people just do not respond to people who don't seem authentic or seem like you're trying to sell you, because it feels like you're trying to get one over on them, even if you're not. And
Mhm.
so I really think that, the way that you're approaching real estate, the way that you, I want to say, like, laissez-faire attitude about it. You're not being super aggressive about it, and you're just like, I want to do the best and I want to be available. I really feel that that's a great way to enter the industry. Now, obviously, we haven't talked about any of your numbers or anything like that, but it sounds like your dad has built a career, so he knows what it takes, right? So I'm sure he's laid everything out for you and what that sort of looks like. So hopefully we can get both of you guys back on the podcast, or if not, at least him. We can kind of get the other side of the story of what that looks like. But before we go, I did want to say, if you have any questions, or if you want to just remind people of kind of anything you might have coming up, or your social media, so they have it stuck in their head, this would be a good time to do that.
Okay, well, I just want to say, to wrap up our podcast, that there's somebody for everybody, right? So whatever profession you're in, you're not going to appeal to everybody, and you shouldn't try to. So the best thing you could do for yourself is just stay true to exactly who you are, and don't put up a front, because people read that, and even if you don't mean any harm by it, it just comes off as off-putting. So just be you, follow your intention, and that's the purest thing, is the intention within you. So yeah, and beyond that, keep up with me on social media. My Instagram handle is Sophia Barcenas, SOPHIA BARCENAS. That's where I post the most, my day-to-day life. And my journey is just beginning. So come along with me.
And remember, guys, that we will have all of her information in the bio section, so you can always get it there. Definitely make sure that you go and you add her, follow all the things that she's cooking. I know I'm going to check it out because I like to watch stuff about food too. So thank you very much for being on. Really appreciate it. I think a great insight to what you're doing. If you're looking for a realtor out here in the Sacramento area, somebody that's clearly partnered with somebody who is doing a great job in the industry, definitely keep her in mind. And as always, this is the Hard Money Show, where we talk about real estate, home loans, and media. You guys have a great day.
Awesome.